What you're about to hear is a story that will fundamentally change the way you think about teenage relationships, warning signs, and the devastating consequences when manipulation turns deadly. This is the tragic case of Jaden Parkinson, a 17-year-old girl whose bright future was stolen by someone she trusted, someone she loved. This is a story about love that turned toxic, about manipulation that was carefully masked as affection, and about a crime so profoundly disturbing that even experienced police officers, people who had seen the worst of humanity, struggled to process what they discovered when they opened her grave. Jaden Parkinson was everything you would want in a daughter, a sister, a friend. Those who knew her describe a young girl who radiated pure joy and possessed an infectious love for life that touched everyone around her. She had a slightly mischievous streak, the kind that made her endearing rather than troublesome. It harmoniously blended with her natural charm, creating a personality that drew people to her like a magnet. From her earliest years, Jaden shared a profound and special bond with her mother. It was a relationship built on genuine love, complete trust, and total openness. The kind of mother-daughter connection that many families aspire to but few truly achieve. Jaden's friendliness and natural warmth helped her navigate the sometimes complicated social landscape of school with remarkable ease. She collected friends the way other children collect toys, and each friendship was genuine, meaningful, and treasured. Teachers and classmates alike noted her exceptional sensitivity, her consistently cheerful disposition, and her genuinely kind heart. She wasn't just nice because it was expected of her or because she had to be. Academically, studies came naturally to her. She had dreams, too. Specific, achievable dreams that excited her. Jaden wanted to become a hairdresser. It wasn't just a passing fancy or something she said when adults asked about her future. She was genuinely inspired by the idea of making people feel beautiful, of creating art with her hands, of bringing joy to others through her craft. But at the tender age of 7, everything in Jaden's world changed forever. Her parents made the difficult and painful decision to divorce. In itself, this isn't uncommon in modern society. Many children successfully navigate their parents' separation and emerge resilient and healthy on the other side. But what happened next in the Parkinson family shocked absolutely everyone who knew them. In a custody hearing that left friends and relatives completely bewildered, the court made an unexpected decision. Custody of Jaden and her siblings was awarded not to their mother, but to their father. It remained an absolute mystery to those close to the family how this decision came about. There were no obvious conflicts between the parents, no dramatic incidents, no clear signs that suggested the mother was anything but loving, capable, and devoted. The father moved with all the children to Oxford in the United Kingdom, starting a new chapter far from the only home the children had known. For the Parkinson children, who had been accustomed to an atmosphere filled with love from both parents, this move and separation was absolutely devastating. They missed the fun holidays their parents used to plan, the pleasant surprises, the little moments of pure joy that their mom and dad would arrange just to delight them and see them smile. The decision hit Jaden especially hard. That special bond with her mother, the one that had defined her entire childhood, was suddenly strained by geographic distance and painfully limited contact. For a 7-year-old girl who thrived on emotional connection and closeness, this separation cut deep into her heart. As Jaden entered her teenage years, new and challenging trials emerged. Her irrepressible energy and newly awakened rebellious spirit complicated her father's sincere attempts to manage her upbringing effectively. Their relationship became increasingly strained and tense, and it wasn't because he didn't care about her. In fact, quite the opposite was true. He tried desperately to be a good parent. He made sincere and continuous attempts to surround the children with care, stability, and to provide them with absolutely everything they needed materially and emotionally. The real problem was one of perception and approach. The father was naturally stricter and more demanding in his parenting style compared to their mother. His approach, born entirely from concern, responsibility, and a desire to keep his children safe, felt to teenage Jaden like restriction of her freedom and excessive control over her life. The situation was further aggravated and made worse by the painful lack of regular communication with her mother, whom Jaden missed with an ache that never fully healed or went away. Unable to bridge the gap between what her father offered and what she needed emotionally, Jaden made a decision. She started going to her mother's home. She would spend precious time in the comfort and security of that familiar space, reconnecting with the parents she felt truly understood her without judgment or harsh rules. Importantly, Jaden didn't completely cut off communication with her father during these episodes of running away. She would answer his concerned calls. She would talk to him and reassure him she was safe. But at the first opportunity that presented itself, she would try to return to her mother's side. It was during one of these visits to her mother when Jaden was just 14 years old that her life took a fateful and ultimately tragic turn that would lead to her death. Jaden met a guy named Jake Blakeley, and through him, she was introduced to Jake's older brother, Ben. Ben Blakeley was 20 years old at the time. Let that fact sink in for a moment. Ben started pursuing Jaden. Despite the significant and deeply inappropriate age difference, what Jaden perceived as mutual attraction developed between herself and Ben. Or at least, that's what Jaden believed was happening. They decided to pursue a relationship, a decision that caused immediate concern and alarm among those who knew them. But Jaden herself was utterly captivated by the idea of dating an older guy. It made her feel mature, sophisticated, special, chosen. Due to her young age and extremely limited life experience, she remained naive about relationships and couldn't always cope with the complex and intense emotions and feelings that arose in this dynamic. She chose to ignore the warnings and red flags that came from friends and family members who could clearly see danger ahead. From the moment Ben officially became Jaden's boyfriend, he began to actively and deliberately integrate himself into her environment and social circle. He struck up acquaintances and friendships with his teenage girlfriend's classmates. Think about that for a moment. A grown man, legally an adult, deliberately socializing with school children. Despite the obvious and glaring difference in life experience and worldview, he somehow managed to find common ground with these teenagers. He even cleverly positioned himself as a leader figure among them, someone to look up to and respect. In parallel with this social manipulation, Ben surrounded Jaden with what seemed like excessive attention and care. To an inexperienced young girl who had never been in a relationship before, it felt like the fairy tale romance she'd always dreamed about. She fell head over heels in love with him. He completely and utterly captured her thoughts, her feelings, her imagination. He built magnificent castles in the air with nothing but his words, and naive young Jaden believed absolutely every single one of those promises. But the period of romance and carefree bliss didn't last long at all. Gradually, but steadily, Ben's true behavior began to emerge and take on increasingly possessive and manipulative characteristics. The compliments that had flowed so freely transformed into insults. The affection that had felt so genuine became humiliation and degradation. Just 1 month after the start of their relationship, Ben first allowed himself to treat Jaden with genuine cruelty and meanness. For Jaden, who found herself in a romantic relationship for the very first time in her life, especially with someone so much older and more experienced, the change was deeply confusing, painful, and disorienting. She began to desperately look for reasons for Ben's changing behavior in herself, in her possible shortcomings and failures. This is classic victim mentality. And Ben, being an experienced manipulator, masterfully exploited it to his advantage. He created and arranged real emotional roller coasters for her. At one moment, he could tell her how charming and beautiful she was, how lucky he felt to be with her. The next moment, he would accuse her of terrible things, call her worthless, tell her she was lucky that someone like him would even look at her ugly face. Jealousy became his favorite and most effective weapon of control. Ben would fabricate incredibly elaborate scenarios designed specifically to accuse Jaden of betrayal, cheating, and deception. He would twist innocent interactions with male classmates into ironclad evidence of her supposed infidelity. And with each accusation, each interrogation, each forced confession, Jaden's self-esteem and sense of self-worth crumbled a little bit more. It was during this increasingly dark period that Jaden discovered her boyfriend was periodically using illegal substances and drugs. His dramatic emotional instability and violent mood swings were partly explained by this dangerous fact. But anyone watching carefully could see that the substance abuse wasn't the core problem here. The real fundamental problem was Ben himself, who he was as a person at his core. All the warning signs clearly indicated that verbal and emotional abuse would not be the end of Jaden's suffering. Once she was firmly attached to this toxic relationship through trauma bonding, once Ben had successfully isolated her from her support system and systematically broken down all her psychological defenses, his behavior escalated to something truly aggressive, dangerous, and cruel. One day, when they were walking together with Jaden's small group of remaining friends, Ben began to openly and harshly express his dissatisfaction with them. He criticized how they dressed, how they talked, what they laughed about, what they found funny. This was straight out of the textbook manipulator's playbook. Isolate the victim completely from their support system. Cut them off from friends and family who might recognize the abuse and intervene to save them. But then something remarkable happened that showed Jaden's core strength. Despite everything she'd been through, she found a spark of her old self. She actually dared to stand up to her boyfriend. She defended her right to communicate with her friends, asserting clearly that these relationships were important to her, and she absolutely wouldn't give them up for anyone. Ben's response was entirely predictable and absolutely terrifying. He flew into a furious rage. He resorted to every single manipulative technique in his arsenal to force Jaden to quarrel with her friends. He spread vicious lies about them. He created unnecessary drama. He forced Jaden into impossible positions where she was backed into corners and had to choose between him and them. Jaden tried desperately and valiantly to maintain those precious friendships. But gradually, painfully, one by one, her friends began to turn away and distance themselves. Not because they didn't genuinely care about Jaden or love her, but because Ben's relentlessly toxic behavior was simply too much to bear. Despite absolutely everything, despite the isolation, despite the cruelty, despite the violence, Jaden's feelings for Ben somehow didn't fade away. And then Ben crossed a line that should have ended everything immediately and permanently. He hit Jaden directly in the face with his fist. Inexcusable, unforgivable. And although it was obvious to any rational observer that such behavior could never ever be justified under any circumstances, Ben still somehow managed to convince Jaden that she was actually to blame for making him do it, that she had provoked him beyond what any man could tolerate. Jaden's family watched all of this unfold with growing horror and helplessness. They could see their beloved daughter and sister trapped in an obviously toxic and dangerous relationship with a very dangerous person. Her mother tried desperately to get through to her to make her see reason, but Jaden found herself caught in a constant internal battle between her family who loved her and the person she mistakenly believed she loved. Then, in early December 2013, everything changed in a way nobody expected. Jaden discovered she was pregnant with Ben's child. At just 17 years old, still a child herself in so many ways, facing an uncertain future with an abusive boyfriend, Jaden found herself confronting one of life's biggest and most consequential decisions far too young. The pregnancy news sent Ben into an immediate panic. Despite all his endless talk about their future together, he was absolutely not ready to be a father. More importantly, he simply didn't want to be one. He began pressuring Jaden relentlessly, aggressively, sometimes violently, to have an abortion and terminate the pregnancy immediately. But something profound shifted deep inside Jaden when she learned about the pregnancy. Perhaps it was maternal instinct suddenly kicking in with surprising force. Perhaps it was the realization that this child could finally be the real family she'd always desperately craved. Whatever the reason, Jaden made a firm, unshakable decision that would seal her fate. She would keep her baby no matter what Ben wanted. This decision absolutely infuriated Ben beyond anything Jaden had seen before. He became even more violent, controlling, and dangerous than before. The beatings intensified in frequency and severity. The verbal abuse reached new heights of cruelty and degradation that were almost unimaginable. In early December, when Jaden was approximately 5 weeks pregnant with their child, Ben took Jaden to a remote countryside location, far from any prying eyes or potential witnesses. What he told her to convince her to go there with him, we can only speculate. What happened next is almost too terrible, too evil to comprehend. Ben Blakeley strangled Jaden Parkinson to death with his bare hands. But here's where this already horrific case becomes even more disturbing and nightmarish. Forensic experts, who later carefully examined Jaden's body, made a chilling determination. Ben didn't simply kill her quickly in a moment of rage or passion. He deliberately strangled her at least 3 separate times, each time bringing her right to the brink of death, watching her lose consciousness, then reviving her and bringing her back only to strangle her again and repeat the horrific process. Each time he brought her back to consciousness, she would have experienced those moments of pure terror completely anew. The awful realization that she was dying. The ultimate betrayal of someone she loved actually taking her life and the life of their unborn child. Ben did this deliberately for his own perverted pleasure and entertainment. He genuinely enjoyed watching her suffer. He relished the absolute power and control he had over her life and death. After murdering Jaden, Ben called his younger brother, Jake, and forced him at threat of violence to help dispose of Jaden's body. Jake was absolutely terrified of his older brother, and for very good reason. Under Ben's threatening direction, Jake helped move Jaden's lifeless body into a large suitcase. But Ben wasn't satisfied with simply dumping her body somewhere remote like most killers do. He had a specific, calculated plan. Ben forced Jake to accompany him to 2 different churchyards over the following nights. At each location, Ben ordered his terrified brother to dig into existing graves to test whether they could bury Jaden without detection. On December 3, 2013, Ben took a taxi to Great Rollright Church carrying an enormous, obviously heavy suitcase. He buried Jaden's body in the grave of his great-grandfather's former partner. Meanwhile, Jaden's relatives were becoming increasingly alarmed and frightened. Her mother tried frantically to find her through friends, checking everywhere she could think of, but all attempts proved futile. Jaden's phone remained in Ben's possession the entire time, and he callously sold it, completely depriving the missing girl's desperate relatives of any opportunity to contact her. On December 4, 2013, just 1 day after Ben buried Jaden, the Parkinson family turned to the police with an official missing person report. Law enforcement officers immediately recognized the serious nature of the situation and launched a massive comprehensive investigation. 100 police officers were deployed to search for Jaden. They combed through areas on foot. They used helicopters to inspect territory from the air. They reviewed CCTV footage from cameras throughout the entire city. As investigators pieced together the timeline of events, alarming signs began appearing that pointed directly at Ben. All the evidence led straight to his doorstep. Police accused him of kidnapping. But from the very beginning, Ben denied everything. Trying to maintain his innocence, Ben became angry and agitated. He even made veiled threats against the law enforcement officers questioning him. But the investigation's extensive media coverage eventually bore crucial fruit. A taxi driver who had been following the case contacted police. He recognized Ben from the news coverage and had given him a ride with a huge suitcase to a church cemetery that fateful night. On December 19th, on Christmas Eve, police found Jaden's body in the grave. This day forever darkened the Parkinson family's life. The autopsy confirmed strangulation as the cause of death, with significant bruising consistent with repeated powerful blows. Jaden's mother had to perform the unbearable task of identifying her daughter's body. During trial, Ben claimed mental illness made him not responsible. Psychiatric experts completely refuted this transparent attempt to avoid punishment. About 10 witnesses confirmed they'd seen bruises on Jaden and noticed dramatic changes in her behavior under Ben's manipulation. Forensic experts revealed the horrifying truth that Ben had deliberately strangled Jaden 3 separate times, reviving her between each attack, extending her suffering for his own perverted pleasure. Throughout the trial, Ben showed absolutely no remorse. His behavior was erratic and disturbing. He laughed inappropriately, made jokes, then suddenly became furious and insulting. He even threatened the prosecutor with physical violence in open court. After 20 hours of careful deliberation, 11 of 12 jury members found Ben guilty of premeditated murder. When the judge prepared to announce sentencing, Ben threw a theatrical tantrum, screaming and writhing. He bizarrely accused Jaden of conspiring against him from beyond the grave. The judge handed down the maximum sentence available under UK law, life imprisonment with no possibility of parole review, for a minimum of 20 years. The judge emphasized that Ben Blakeley posed a considerable and ongoing danger to society and should remain imprisoned. Jaden Parkinson's memory deserves to be honored not just with our grief and our tears, but with meaningful action, with an unwavering commitment to recognizing abuse early and intervening decisively before more young lives are stolen. Her life mattered profoundly, and her death should serve as a wake-up call to all of us about the deadly reality of domestic violence. Rest in peace, Jaden Parkinson. You deserve so much better than what this world gave you. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you can be the first to hear about such real-life stories.